Chapter 3 is stress and health psychology. When we think about stress, stress is caused by how we interpret something that happens to us. If you view something that happens to you as threatening or challenging, chances are you will feel stressed. A stressor is anything that induces stress. So it's what causes the stress. For example, if you lose your job, that might be the trigger that causes you to interpret, I won't be able to provide for my family. So now you feel threatened and challenged. Now you feel stressed. But the trigger could be you lose your job and now you're experiencing stress because you feel like your family's well-being is in jeopardy. Here are the 7 major sources of stress. There's acute and chronic stress, job stress, cataclysmic events, life changes, conflicts, hassles, and frustration. Job stress is one of the main sources of stress for many adults because, as I just said before, if you're unemployed or you lose your job, that can be very stressful if you feel like you cannot provide for your family. Even changing a job can be stressful because you may not know what the expectations are for you in your new role. Having concerns about your job performance or being evaluated and feeling like you're not getting the right marks can cause stress. Also, some careers are just naturally stressful, such as being a police officer or a firefighter, or being a first responder. Not knowing your specific role in your job and what you're supposed to do, or having role ambiguity where you are performing a job, but maybe you're unsure about what should be taking place, though all of those things can cause stress. Hassles are another source of stress. When it comes to hassles, those are the small things that exist. They're like the daily problems you might have in your life, just the small things. Hassles can lead to burnout and not feeling up to doing something, maybe make wanting to make some changes in your life. Being frustrated can also lead to stress. And anytime people are frustrated, they're upset and they don't really know what to do. And then lastly, on this slide is the cataclysmic events. This is any type of natural disaster or something that can happen suddenly and affect a great number of people. Those things are stressful. Conflict is another source of stress. And when we have conflict, we're having some type of decision we have to make in our mind about what we want to do regarding a situation. It could be with another person, or it could be conflict that exists within yourself. There are 3 types of sort of self-conflict that could occur. There's the approach conflict, the avoidance conflict, and the approach avoidance conflict. With the approach conflict, that is when you have to make a choice between 2 options that are desirable to you. Do I want to go on vacation to Mexico, or do I want to go on vacation to Hawaii? These are both 2 things you want to do, but you can't do both. You know you can't afford to do both, so you have to choose out of the 2 which one you want to do. The avoidance conflict is when you have to choose between 2 things that are undesirable. There are 2 things you really don't want to do. So do you want to, you get a ticket, do defensive driving, and take a course, or pay your ticket? Nobody wants to have to do either one of those things, but in order to get rid of the ticket, you've got to do one of them. So you have to make a choice between 2 undesirable options. And then Lastly, the approach avoidance conflict has to do with one option that you have, which has both positive and negative characteristics. For example, let's just say that you have a new job opportunity that you could take, but it requires you to move to New York, right? So, you want to take the job, but you realize, you're going to make more money. This is a great opportunity. You're advancing. These are the positives of it. And the negatives might be that you are away from your family. You just started a new relationship. You don't know how that will work. So, approach avoidance is the option that has both positive and negatives. And it's probably the option that's the hardest to make a decision for, because you have multiple options that are both desirable and undesirable. The approach conflict is the easiest one to resolve because it's two things you really want to do. Acute and chronic stress are also major sources of stress. So when we think of the word acute, we have to think of stress that is severe but hasn't lasted that long. It's a short-term thing. So if you experience an accident or almost experience an accident, or you miss an important deadline, that can cause you short-term stress that after a while, a couple of days, a couple of weeks will go away. Chronic stress is continuous stress that lasts in your life for a long period of time, experiencing prejudice and discrimination, feeling like you're treated unfairly, being abused, having financial problems, facing alcoholism, or being in war. Those are some examples of things that could lead to chronic stress. So long-term stress that lasts more than a few weeks or, a couple of months. So when it comes to experiencing stress, our body reacts to stress according to something called the general adaptation syndrome. There are 3 stages to this syndrome that says our bodies are designed to be able to handle temporary stress. The acute stress is okay, but when stress becomes chronic, it starts to negatively impact our lives. So the first stage of the general adaptation syndrome is the alarm phase. This is when you first experience a stressor and you start to feel threatened. Your body enters a stage of panic. Your sympathetic nervous system is activated. You might have experienced sweating or an increased heart rate or increase in blood pressure. And then you might sort of panic at that point. That is the alarm phase of the general adaptation syndrome. You're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? Your body's responding to the stress that you're experiencing. The resistance phase occurs as step 2 as your body continues to experience this chronic stress. Your body will try to resist it or adapt to the stressor. So then your physiological arousal continues to be high. Your body starts to produce a lot of stress hormone. So you try to cope in the best way possible. You're trying to resist the stress that you're feeling. If you're experiencing some job stress and you feel threatened at your job, you might try to work longer hours. You might give up your vacation days because you're trying to resist whatever negativity is coming your way. You're trying to get rid of the stress and find a solution to it. The third phase of the general adaptation syndrome is the exhaustion phase. This is where your body can no longer resist the stress because it's been going on for so long that your reserves are so depleted that you can become sick or ill. It weakens your immune system, experiencing chronic long-term stress. You could even die from the long-term stress you're experiencing, because when you're exhausted, your body can no longer help fight the stress your body is producing. So those are the 3 steps of the general adaptation syndrome. And that is how our body reacts to the stress we're feeling. So speaking a little bit more about the reactions your body experiences to stress, it's important to know that stress is one of the worst things you can do for your immune system, because your body is naturally producing cortisol to help you reduce the amount of stress you feel. But the more you stress, the weaker your immune system becomes, and your body is going to produce more and more cortisol to try to combat the stress. Experiencing stress can also impact your ability to function cognitively. You cannot think clearly if you are overstressed, and it can lead to permanent damage to your hippocampus, which controls your ability to remember. Now, it's also important for us to realize that stress is not always bad. There's a difference between being stressed and experiencing distress and eustress. Distress is an uncomfortable, undesirable stress that you might feel. It could be caused by, negative things that are happening around you, but it may not lead to extreme stress. Eustress is actually pleasant, desirable stress. It's the stress you feel that helps you be productive and helps you accomplish things that are challenging. Many students will often procrastinate and wait till the last minute to do assignments, and they say that procrastination helps them. It's not that procrastination is helping them. It's that procrastination is probably causing them to feel eustress, which is causing them to be more productive when they know a deadline is almost there, rather than completing something early. One condition that may be caused by stress is gastric ulcers. And ulcers are lesions that occur in the lining of your stomach, and in the upper sections of your small intestines. And these lesions occur because of your experiences of chronic stress. Doctors oftentimes have to prescribe antibiotics and then also some behavioral techniques to help reduce the amount of gastric ulcers that exist for some people. As the condition of gastric ulcers worsens, H. pylori, which is like a bacteria that grows in the stomach, can damage your stomach walls. So it's very important that anybody who experiences gastric ulcers sees a doctor so that they can get some antibiotics, and they also have to make some lifestyle changes so that stress doesn't continue to be a problem. Another condition that can be exacerbated by stress is cancer. So what happens with cancer is, as cancer develops in a person's body and invades their healthy tissues, stress can cause their immune system to weaken. And when the immune system weakens, that can cause cancer to spread to other organs. So it's very important that you keep your stress levels low, because the truth of the matter is anything could be going on with us and we don't know. And stress, once stress weakens our immune system, then all types of illnesses can invade our lives. Cardiovascular disorders and diseases can also be exacerbated by stress. So heart disease, which we know can lead to a heart attack. Stress tends to worsen or increase a person's heart rate. Of course, engaging in diet and exercise and reducing your stress can help with that. Chronic pain is also something that can be worsened by experiencing stress. There's a number of different things listed here for you regarding chronic pain. People who experience pain for 6 months or longer, they oftentimes have to take medications and things like that. But if they continue to stress, then the pain will persist. We also have post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, which is a condition involving long-term traumatic stress. It's very important that despite the picture, we realize that post-traumatic stress disorder is not just caused by war. Experiencing any type of trauma, something that the person perceives as being traumatic to them, is post-traumatic stress disorder. It's going to change by person to person because not everybody sees a trauma the same. One person might experience a car accident and have life, they may experience post-traumatic stress disorder, and another person might only have acute stress and it goes away in a very short period of time. When it comes to PTSD, here are some key characteristics of the disorder. You have to experience a trauma directly in order to have PTSD, and your experiences of the symptoms related to post-traumatic stress disorder have to be recurrent. You have to always think about it, have feelings of it, memories, bad dreams, etc. If those two characteristics don't exist, it's probably not post-traumatic stress disorder. It could just be chronic stress. Here are some tips for coping in a crisis. First of all, you have to be able to recognize your feelings. You have to be able to talk to others, whether it's a therapist or friends or family. You have to talk. That is the main thing. You also have to be kind to yourself and realize that sometimes it's normal to feel stress regarding a situation. It's the persistence of the stress that can be negative. Getting a lot of sleep is important. Being able to take care of your time and to say no and to set those boundaries with other people who may expect more from you than you're able to give. Developing some stress management skills are also a very, very good ways to cope with a crisis. When it comes to experiencing stress, your cognitive appraisal, or how you view the stressful situation, is going to impact whether or not you experience stress. So the goal of cognitive appraisal is to manage stress, not to eliminate it, because we know that stressful conditions will exist. How do we manage it? So when we have a primary appraisal, cognitively, when we're thinking about a situation, we assess whether or not it is harmful to us. If it is harmful, then we also have a secondary appraisal. We think about, okay, how can I handle this situation that's now harmful to me? What resources do I have available to me? There are typically two ways that people cope whenever they feel like they have a situation that's harmful. They have emotion-focused coping, which is where you regulate your emotions and your reactions to the stressor, or you have problem-focused coping, which is trying to reduce or eliminate the stressor itself. When it comes to gender, most women tend to have more emotion-focused coping. So women are going to want to talk about their emotions and try to regulate their emotions in order to eliminate the stressor. They may talk to their friends or family, or try to talk to their spouse or their significant other. And then men tend to have more of a problem focused coping methods when it comes to stress because they want to get to the source of the problem and just get rid of it. Like, what can I do so that this doesn't exist anymore? Part of a person's ability to cope with stress also has to do with their own personality and how they view the situation. Your locus of control has to do with whether or not you feel things happen to you or whether or not you believe that you are in control of the things that happen to you. People who have an internal locus of control believe that they are in control of everything that happens in their life. So when something bad happens to them, they don't feel, that it's the end of the world. They think about, okay, what can I do to solve this situation? A person with an external locus of control believes that outside forces determine what occurs to them. Many people who experience domestic violence and continue to go back to the person who has abused them will say things that appear to be related to an external locus of control because they'll feel like there's nothing else I can do. This person treats me like this and I can't do anything about it. Whereas somebody with an internal locus of control would say, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm going to find some resources and I'm going to get out of this relationship. Being optimistic or seeing the best in the situation or the future can also help with how you assess stress and how you handle it. It's important to have a positive affect. So experiencing positive feelings and being happy and trying to find joy in the things that exist in your life can help reduce your experiences of stress. There are also other resources to help deal with stress as well. There's mindfulness, which has to do with being able to attend an event and not be judgmental, just being mindful of the moment and staying in the moment and not letting that negative thing, other things that are happening to you, invade the actual moment. And then also having good social support. Research has shown us that people who have friends and family and people that they can confide in and talk to tend to do better when it comes to dealing with their stress. Here are some other resources for coping with stress. Exercising helps reduce stress. Changing your behaviors. Having various material resources or things that you can do to sort of distract your mind. Having good social skills. Having ways to manage those stressors and feeling like you're in control and being able to relax. These are all ways that you can manage stress. So a health psychologist is someone who studies the effects of stress on the immune system and tries to figure out ways to reduce the stress people feel by helping them eliminate unhealthy behaviors and helping educate them about things that will help them reduce their level of stress. Many people who work in the field of health psychology can work at hospitals. They can also be independent clinicians. So being a health psychologist is another area in the field of psychology that is available if anybody's interested in that. The last two things I want to discuss regarding health psychology is a relatively new term, technostress, and how it can affect a person. So technostress has two definitions. Technostress can be viewed as the stress that is caused by overexposure or over-involvement, overuse of technology. So when you use technology, you engage in being on the computer or using social media a lot, that can lead to techno stress. Or you can also experience techno stress when you feel like technology has advanced so much and you aren't competent in using those technologies. So if you feel like the world has changed so much and there's so much modern technology that you're not able to function, that can also cause techno stress. So techno stress has to do with stress that the person experiences because of technology. There are also some resources listed that can help with job-related stress. Having good supportive colleagues, always having people around you at work who can support you is important. Having supportive working conditions. You don't want to work in a job that is toxic. People usually leave those jobs because they don't feel that they can work and maintain their sanity. Um, Engaging in mentally challenging work. You don't want a job that's too easy. You want something where you feel like you're actually having to put forth effort. And then having equitable rewards. So feeling like your pay is representative of what you deserve. And that is everything for Chapter 3, Stress and Health Psychology.